Hi everyone again. And sorry to the group that I was just in. They were like, oh God, Emma's in our group. So that was funny. But every day's a school day. So I love learning new things from and for goodness sake, whatever I'm talking about today, make sure you take it on board and make it relevant for you. So this morning I'm here to help you de-bollox your marketing. So I know in the room we've got some people with marketing experience. Don't hate me. We've got some business leaders and a whole host of interesting backgrounds. So thank you for being here. So here's the elephant in the room. Marketing is a bit bollocks. Okay, as a discipline, it's got a bad rap. Okay, it's hard. Sometimes it doesn't work. Most of us have no idea what we need to know, and it can be risky, right? Because it can be really expensive. Here's the good news, though. Most marketers don't know and don't do the stuff that I'm going to outline this morning. So by getting up early this morning, you guys have already smashed it. So like most things in business, marketing is really so much simpler when we've got the basics in place. Think about it. When we set up our businesses, there's things we have done. Someone probably asked for a business plan, but we would have thought about our pricing. We would have thought about, what's our product offering? And we've done some thinking. So I want you to imagine now that when we're finished here today, or when you've had chance to ruminate, because I'm a great thinker, like straight immediately, that's not for me. I like to think about it. But when we finished here today, imagine that you knew what you needed to do to know the content to create for your marketing, so that you knew what to post, so that you knew what was going to be the best call to action that was going to mean your audience, your target was going to take action, that you knew where to put your messaging and what you should talk about. And most importantly, that you were 100% confident about all of it. That's my hope for today. But for some reason with marketing, we just dive into it. We just dive in. Why do we do that? I think it's because we're busy, because we want some support for if we've got a salesperson or that they need some help. Like we think we need to do something because it's the end of the month or the quarter or the half and we need to sort our figures out, or the accountant's shouting at us, but something has to happen. But why do we just dive in? In other areas of our business, we do that thinking and we'd apply that. Has everyone heard of the 80-20 rule? Mm-hmm. Where we do 80% of the thinking before we do 20% of the doing. But just think about it. How many times have you just dived in, like, I'm just going to get this post out. I just need to get this thing out on LinkedIn or wherever it is. Or I just need to write an article. Who just writes an article apart from the copywriters out there who do that, obviously? And I'm really trying to find, if anyone knows, if someone's done some research on why it is that we just dive in, please let me know. I'm sure someone's done a PhD. But it's this diving in without the thinking that is the reason why our marketing is bollocks. So the foundations of marketing are clear. First, you have to know your market. Next, you have to know which part of the market you are going to target. And thirdly, when you know that, you should have the information or know where to go to get the information on how to position your product or service to your chosen market segment. Right. Nothing in there sounds particularly revelationary. You're like, Emma, you're a shyster. It's blooming obvious. Okay, I get it. So I'm just going to try and share something now. Hang on, let's move that on a bit. So am I sharing? No.
You're sharing.
Something wrong.
Yeah, you're not sharing the slides.
There you go. Let's try that.
There you go. You got it. You got it.
So this concept, those 3 steps in bolloxy marketing nonsense terms is known as segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Segmentation, targeting, positioning. Okay, and so we sometimes call that STP, which if anyone's worked in food service is also sticky toffee pudding. For those of you that are in comms, that's shielded twisted pears. And let me tell you, there's a whole load of other STPs. So what I'm going to do now is delve into an example. So I've worked with an EdTech app, and I use these guys as an example because most of us understand apps, and most of us have an understanding more or less of the education system, because hopefully we were there for at least 5 minutes in our past lives. Okay, so this app, here it is. It uses a really clever speech recognition algorithm, and it encourages children to read. Very simply, children read aloud using the app. As they read aloud, words change colour, and they can double tap for a clue if they didn't know the word. Any parents out there with young primary age children, if you're interested, ping me a message and I can point you in their direction. I have to say, it is really phenomenal. So I started working with them early doors of lockdown, and my daughter was just the right age. And now she's an epic reader, super confident. She's 7. She'll pick up a David Walliams fat ass book and she'll dive in. So yes, it's a bit of a plug. So it is a phenomenal app, but for the home market, it's not really sexy. There's no VR goggles to wear, but it really is astonishing. And in the background to the app, it's able to give amazing data to teachers and potentially to parents, although most parents, we're too busy and we're like, here, go on the iPad. So when I started working with them, I worked on their market segmentation, and I'd already taken them from being product orientated. So this is like, we've got this amazing app, look at our amazing technology. They're focused on their product, which is what happens with a lot of businesses. We're so delighted and amazed and look at our wondrous thing that we talk about that. But actually, that's of no consequence. Nobody cares. That's parish news. Sorry, guys. Only we care about that. The example I gave in the breakout was no one wants to buy a drill bit. They want a hole in the wall because they want shelves up. Okay, no one wants a drill bit. And if you're talking about the functional stuff in your business, then you're talking about a drill bit. Do you want a 4 mil? Do you want a 5 mil? I don't know. I just want a bloody hole in the wall. Okay, so what we did was we moved them from being rah, 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 all about our app, to being focused on the market. And that's what you need to do. Be market orientated. Think customer orientated if the word market sounds too scary. And hey, I know you guys know this stuff, right? You need to talk to your customers. So back to this example. So this app was, if they were going to target the education market, that's 22,000 primary schools in the UK. Holy shiz, right? They're a small team. How on earth are they going to get to 22,000 primary schools? Okay, and think about you guys with your businesses. Think about the potential market for your business is massive. Very simply, if they were trying to go and target all of those schools, what we used to call, you might have heard of this phrase, spray and pray, where you just fling out a message and hope someone's going to come back to you. They were going to be unsuccessful. They'd spend all their capital and have few results. So I'm just going to show this. So what we needed to do was to look at the market and divide it up into essentially manageable chunks. That's the normal speak for a segment, okay? We're just taking this whole ginormous market and putting it into manageable chunks. So let's think about education. There are large schools, small schools, council-funded schools, private schools, schools run by trust, special needs schools, and so on. Okay, so that's the market. Now we know the problem that the app solves. Okay, so that's why you need to be market orientated, because drill bits ain't sexy. Sorry, anyone who's into drill bits. And I think it's really important to remember that our customer is why we have a business. So if we're not talking to them, what the hell are we doing? We're missing out on some of the most valuable information that we can bring into our business. So please speak to your customer. And it's also really useful to speak to the people that you've spoken to and they've decided to not go with you for whatever reason. Imagine the richness you can find out from them about what was it. Last night I was on a call about Help to Grow, which is a government funded program to help small businesses. You have to have 5 employees as a minimum, just because that's a government framework for SMEs. My brain's just gone. Anyway, I'll come back to that.
Speak to the people who said no.
Yes. And we found out that the central ordering system, because it's all governmenty, is a bit bollocks. It's a really tricky ass system to navigate your way through. So people are really interested, but just couldn't fathom their way through this system. And so that's been good feedback to lead to feedback into the system. They were potentially losing a third of their leads, which has been hard fought for. And I don't want that for you. So let's go back to our example. So we knew that app would help schools with low reading scores. Okay. And we knew it would help in schools where there's a high percentage of pupils where English is an additional language, because those pupils might need some help with their English practice. And also where there's a high percentage of pupils who had special and additional educational needs. So that reading data, like what are the reading scores in those schools, and pupil numbers and all that data are examples of what we call meaningful and actionable data. What's meaningful, as in it means it's useful for your segmentation activity. Okay, whether Emma is wearing yellow earrings or not is not meaningful data. Okay, so it has to be meaningful, useful for your segmentation. And actionable means basically that, one, you can get hold of it. There's no point in, I only want to speak to people who've got pink pajamas. That's not really actionable data. How on earth would we find that out, apart from maybe, stealing a database from Next of all the people who bought a pink pajamas? I don't know, right? And if it's not meaningful or actionable, at least for this purposes, then it's bollocks data. Okay, we only want meaningful and actionable. Now, back to this example, the Department for Education, bless its cottons, publishes a bucket load of school data. So for the parents amongst you, this is where you might have gone to look at school achievement data. I've got a son we're trying to get him into a secondary school, and given we've just relocated, it's harder than finding unicorn poo. But they do publish this data. And if you imagine that for 22,000 schools, there were a lot of rows and a gazillion columns. But we were able to then split those primary schools into different segments. And we identified the schools who had low reading scores, high percentage of pupils above the average with pupils with additional needs, and where the English was an additional language. So we found our 3 key pain points. There was an overlap. There were some schools where they had all 3. And that's what old colleagues of mine would have said, low-hanging fruit, because they've got 3 out of the 3 pain points. Ka-ting! And then we start looking at the size of the school. Okay. Now, yes, we want to help the smaller schools. Of course we do. But we also know that there's a value to that particular sale. So a smaller school, there's a price for that, but a bigger school, we know there's a higher ticket price for that. And yes, we want to help everyone. I'm sure that's the kind of feeling that we all have in this room. We want to help everyone, but we have to be laser focused. And we had the question earlier about best piece of advice. Here's a really important piece of advice. One of the most important strategic decisions that you're going to make for your business is who you are not going to focus on right now. Sounds bizarre, but who are you not going to focus on right now? Not saying you're never going to focus on them. But have a think about this. Taking this school example. If they sold into a big school in an area, who do you think the little schools go to look for advice? They go and ask the big schools. We've had that feedback in the breakouts that, people, they go to sessions like this. Who did you use for such and such? Oh, you want to use Emma. You want to use this person, that person, or this company or that company. So by making a strategic decision, we were able to look at those segments. Imagine that box. We knew how many schools were in that segment. We therefore were able to ascertain the number of pupils. We actually had the pupil data. So that meant we knew that we could charge at this point. So we knew the value of that segment. And now imagine that you're in my shoes at that point and I've got all this glorious data. It's not to say I'm a data nerd. Well, I'm a little bit, but only because I know how transformational this stuff is. And I had this amazing amount of data and I brought it out into an Excel, but I've got a big whiteboard here. I've got a big whiteboard in my meeting room. It is game changer time. This is data that can drive sensible decisions, because we know that we're making a decision based on some solid data. And it gives you the confidence that you're focusing on the most appropriate audience group for you right now. And I emphasize that point, right now. And this data is the stuff that's going to help you stop having those, I call it the 3 a.m. night sweats. Now that's just me because I'm menopausal, but other people waking up at 3 a.m. and going, I haven't done this, that, and the other. I haven't posted here. I haven't done this, because you're panicking. You're not doing the right thing in the right way or the right channels. When you've got this data, you go, yes, I know I could help that small school, but right now we're focusing on these guys. Okay. And right now you're probably going, that's all very well, Em, but I am not selling to schools. So it's of no relevance. How do I find data that is going to be useful to me? Well, here's the good news. Around the country, there are lots of online resources, and if you connect to me on LinkedIn, I'm happily point you in the direction of some of them. But I know for certain around where Peter and Sarah are, and for those of you that are around Oxford, but look it up. So in libraries, the British Library has around the country these business and intellectual property centres. It's absolutely free for you to go and use them. I'd encourage you to make an appointment and go in. In Oxford, it's in the City Library. The guys there are incredibly knowledgeable. You'll have access to data that you wouldn't be able to get for free otherwise. And it is game changing. The data that you can find is interesting. And there's some stuff that will be more appropriate for different sectors, but it will start you on your journey of finding really interesting data. So now we've got an informed view of the full market. The T, that's the segmentation, that's the S. The T is targeting. So this is simply where we're going to look at those segments and decide which one or two we're going to target. And you might go 2, you might go 3, but not whole of market. Okay, because when you're targeting everyone, you're targeting no one. Okay, yes, there's something about brand awareness, but if you target everyone with the same message and expect it to resonate or expect it to deliver results, it's not going to, because each of these segments, as we've just ascertained by doing this segmentation, have their own needs and requirements, their own challenges and pain points, and their own opportunities. So you might choose to have the same graphic, for example, depending on what the graphic is. I'm just using that as an example, but you'd have a different narrative. You'd have different copy in the post because it's got to connect with different people for different reasons. There might be a different call to action. But, this is where it's like bolloxy, lazy marketing is when we post the same thing everywhere. We've all done it. I do it sometimes when I'm cut for time, but I can't expect it to, you know, move the needle because I need to target. And here's something really interesting. There are 2 speeds of marketing. Okay, so just mentioned about brand awareness here. So here on this slide here, we've got the campaign, which is the fast bit of marketing. So this is where if you do something, you put out some posts or you engage with people, or it might even be you put out a paid campaign. This is, you do stuff, stuff happens, turn it off, stuff stops. Okay, on, off, on, off. This is why we get our, you know, you do a splurge of outreach and then suddenly you're inundated with meetings, right? There's the kind of stuff that happens, okay? On, off. It's the feast and famine that we have in small businesses, okay? It could be paid on, paid off, da, 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 da. And that will go on, thus it ever was. But the second speed is the slow. And that's brand awareness. Now, in most businesses, we don't really think about it because, you know, look at that time where it's not really doing anything. It's not kind of particularly remarkable. And in different companies, in different sectors, the flip over point is different. But on average, according to research from the FEs, which is Marketing Effectiveness Awards, it's about 2 years, 24 months, when brand awareness starts to have a noticeable effect. But if it's taking 2 years, you're like, I haven't got time. But let's have a think about it. You invest in some brand awareness, it's going to multiply the stuff that you're doing on the tactical. I think about it, a big brand. Now, we're not quite McDonald's, okay? But you see a red billboard with half a yellow curve on it, 200 yards left. You know that means McDonald's is 200 yards on the left because of brand awareness. In time, when you see yellow, if you're anything like my daughter, you're going to think Business Bollox. Okay, my daughter, I have to call it BB now because whenever she saw yellow, she'd shout out BB, she'd shout out Business Bollox, which was a bit awkward when she was 5. Okay, but there's brand awareness and it builds and it accelerates the other stuff that you're doing. And it is really important because at some point that's going to overtake your tactical activity. Okay, it's worthwhile investing in. If you can even put 30% of your budget into brand awareness, it will pay off for you. Okay, so let's stop sharing that. So we've segmented, we've decided who we're targeting. So now how do we position our product or service to that market? Well, now we've got that information. We know the needs and requirements of our segment. And if we don't, at least now we know where to target some research. Go and speak to those people so we can find out their challenges, pain points, and their opportunities. Okay, we can find out where the buying decision makers go to for information on new products and services. You know, it might be that we do brand awareness on LinkedIn, but there's some journal we go to where they're looking. You know, if you're in B2B, it might be more of a procurement process. If you're B2C, you know, it's going to be maybe connection. But we can position a way that engages and connects, and that encourages them to take action and buy. And buy. And ta-da! There you have it. Okay, it's the crystal ball. I've just counted through this morning the crystal ball of marketing. Okay, by taking this approach to segmentation, targeting, and positioning, it answers your questions, the things that keep you up, and will de-bollox your marketing. So now I challenge you to ask your in-house marketer, or if you outsource it, it might be you, but ask them about STP if you work with someone outside your business, and ask them and see if they think STP means sticky toffee pudding or if it means segmentation, targeting, and positioning.
Fabulous.
We're done.
And Emma, thank you. All right, let me just dismantle Zoom.